All right, welcome to another episode of Remote Voices. We have got an amazing guest today, Kristen Wilson here. I actually did a live podcast with her, I don't know, a couple months ago, I think. But Kristen, go ahead, introduce yourself, tell us what you do, where you work, what you do, and all the great stuff about you.
Hi, everybody. It's good to be here, and to everybody listening or watching. My name is Kristen Wilson, and I've been working for myself as a relocation consultant since 2011, but I started working remotely actually before that, back in 2008, 2009. So I have been a solopreneur in the real estate and relocation space for more than 10 years, and I'm basically a relocation consultant turned content creator, remote work advocate. And now, since the pandemic, since there's no travel and relocation happening right now, I have shifted into video production, content creation, and YouTube consulting for other small businesses, remote companies, and entrepreneurs and founders.
So, what does a relocation consultant do?
I basically help people move to foreign countries.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Super
not
cool.
highly in demand at the moment. So, like you said, you're kind
No.
of pivoting into some more content creation style stuff. What's that transition been like for you?
It's been happening very organically over the past few years because I moved abroad originally back in college to study abroad, and I just completely fell in love with the idea of living and working in foreign countries. And so when I graduated from business school in 2005, instead of working in Orlando and getting a normal job like everybody
Hmm.
else, all of my classmates, I was offered what appeared to be kind of a crazy offer to work for $1,000 a month in Costa Rica, opening up real estate offices for a Coldwell Banker. And so I decided to do that for 1 year. And that was during the real estate boom. And so 1 year turned into 7 years. And then once I had all of that experience helping people move to places in Central America, I started helping people move to more countries all around the world. And then I realized I could work from anywhere. So why stay in Costa Rica,
Hmm.
Nicaragua, Panama? So
Mhm.
I started traveling full time. So I've kind of been a digital nomad since then. And I also was traveling before that as a surfer. So I've always been traveling in some capacity, and I felt like something was
Mhm.
missing. And I think what that was sharing what I was learning through all of these experiences. And so I started researching how to even do that. How do I share? Should I start a blog? And I inevitably decided to start talking about what I was doing, how I was doing it, how people could live an alternative lifestyle, living and working on their own terms. And so I bought a GoPro and then a
Hmm.
camera and just started documenting everything that I did in 2017. And so I started learning how to make videos and publishing on YouTube. And then I started a podcast called Badass Digital Nomads, which was exactly 1 year ago. And over the past 2.5 years, I've created more than, I think, 300 videos. And as I got better at it, other people started asking me to help them create videos. So I've been writing on Medium, started a blog, started a podcast, 2 YouTube channels. I
Wow.
had a news show for 9 months with remote work news. Um, and started publishing on Medium and Quora and things like that, just basically trying to spread the word about the pros and cons, but mostly the benefits of remote work, and also helping people transition out of location dependent jobs to location independent jobs, and also
Hmm.
helping from the company side. So basically, I think it's kind of been a little bit of a Gary V kind of trajectory where he owns a media company and a creative agency, but he started off just creating content about wine. Whereas for me, I started just creating content about travel and remote work. And eventually that turned into me helping other people make videos for their businesses. So it's
Wow.
just happened on
Cool.
its own, but I'm loving it. It's definitely more my style than working in real estate, which is where I started out. So I'm really happy right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, that
Yeah,
definitely
well,
sounds
good.
very organic. So, kind of based off of all that content machine that you just told us about, we're going to go through just a couple hot topics that are based off kind of today's news in remote, in startups, and even the pandemic. We'd love to just kind of get your thoughts on it. It's just kind of open roundtable. So let me bring up the first one that we're going to talk about here. Um, I don't know what your current situation in life is, but one thing we just realized, by the way, we just made remote voices into a audio only version and realized how awful the experience was because we just kept showing stuff on a screen and then just saying, yeah, this one, and then not referencing it at all. So we're just going to start reading these out
Right.
now so that people that are listening on the audio only cast actually have some context. So this is a tweet. It says, my third grader's school just gave her a C- in physical education. And guys, what the actual hell? And the follow up tweet to this was, all of the people in my replies, I think it said like 90% of the people in my replies seem to forget that we're in the middle of a pandemic. So, Kristen, what are your thoughts on this? Like, where does grading in schools and the fact that it's all remote now fall into responsibilities of the school to actually give somebody a grade? But I mean, geez, a physical education score, how could you possibly even grade somebody on that now?
I actually didn't even think about the implications of physical education with remote learning. I'm not sure how they are grading that and what their standards are for that. But there's two sides to this remote pandemic situation because the best time for people to go remote was probably 5 or 10 years ago, but it happened, 5 weeks ago
Hmm.
instead of 5 years ago. So we have that to deal with, and everyone's dealing with it at the same time. So hopefully, a year from now or a couple years from now, things will be different, but that doesn't solve the fallout of being thrown into this crash course of remote work and remote learning at the same time.
Hmm.
So I have a lot of empathy for the kids right now, as well as their parents or caregivers. I've talked to my cousin who just graduated with an engineering degree from the University of Florida, and she has basically moved back in with her mom to basically teach her younger brother because her mom works full time, and where is the kid gonna,
Yeah.
go to class? So basically she has to make sure that he's logging in at 8:30 a.m. for his classes and that he's watching them and he's not playing video games. And then one of my friends has basically adopted her boyfriend's two kids, and she is now the stay-at-home mom slash teacher while he's working. So I can see that this is happening all over the world right now. And I don't have kids, so I can't speak directly into like what people are doing and how people are managing that. But I think it's just really important for the schools to have some compassion.
Oh, did we lose Kristen?
Oh, I think we might have.
She's frozen.
I don't want to lose compassion for her either.
she didn't lose compassion, but she did lose connectivity. All right, says we're live. I don't know what that means. Oh, it's like right over my face. I don't know if that's actually going to be like in the thing. We actually can see our viewers from this as well, so that's exciting. Well, Kristen, what we said before you turned into a frozen video cam was, I was just kind of talking about how I thought it was interesting that you said you hadn't even thought really of physical education as a thing that needs to be carried over into like remote. And I think that's interesting. We don't commonly think about, in terms of education, the physical side of it. You think of like, oh, well, books turn into slideshows, teacher turns into a webcam. How do you run a mile or do a push up, and teach somebody how to do that over video, though? And, Jordan and I are working with a company right now called Salute that's doing, live stream fitness and things like that. But I feel like maybe no one's even thought about the implications of what this looks like on the education side of things. And Hunter, you were saying you have a buddy that does training now. What do you think he's going to do moving forward?
Dude, he's completely out of work right now. I mean, the MLS looks like they're going to be coming back online, but like online meaning like actually back to the fields, but they're doing nothing right now. So I think I saw in this thread actually that they were saying how their kid has to like wave their arms in front of the camera and that counts as like physical education.
Hmm.
I can't imagine what a gym class looks like. I guess it's just a bunch of Zoom videos and everyone just sitting there waving to each other. But
Yeah.
I don't know how
One
you
of
would
the
even
threads said something
start.
like, "Is this because I didn't record my kid like waving for 30 seconds or something
Right.
like that?" Yeah. Yeah.
I
So
feel like you should be able to appeal that decision.
well, I mean, I think it's what you said
Right.
that's really true, which is like you have to have some empathy and compassion in this scenario. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, I know even at a college level, you know, Emilio, who's on our team, you know, their college has offered basically anybody who wants to take a pass fail versus a letter grade can. Like, you can elect to say, like, look, this was too crazy. I don't want to, you know, try and get a grade this year. I just want to take like a pass for the course. And I know my best friend's high school for his kids, they're not doing letter grades. They're just giving everyone like everyone gets equal credit for the semester or something like that in the high school. So it's just interesting to me wherever this is that they even bothered giving out letter grades because everywhere else I've seen that they're just giving credit. And I can't imagine the teachers, the gall on that teacher to give a
Right.
student a C minus is insane.
I
Yeah,
think
based on what?
I think it's also really interesting. It's at like the third grade level too. Like a high schooler, sure, I think I understand like some sense of like accountability, right?
I
But
didn't
a
even
third
catch that.
grader,
Yeah.
a third grader, like what? Like, oh mom, I gotta log into my Zoom. Just what
I
an
think it
insane thing to
it
think
needs to
about.
it needs to change at a fundamental level because, and I know Justin and I have talked about this before, remote work and remote learning should not be the same as traditional work and traditional learning, but in a Zoom meeting or in like some
Right.
live call. It just doesn't make sense. It has to be reformulated from the perspective of remote. So a PE class, for example, might include some classes where the instructor is giving examples of how to do the workout or explaining something, and then the kids can go and do it and use wearable technology,
Mm.
and then their stats are like loaded and they can just
Like
submit what
insanity.
they did.
I'm doing
Yeah.
beach body right now. I'm
You're
on day
doing beach
18.
body?
I'm on day 18,
Okay.
baby. So I'm that's how everything should be. You just get like this nice woman in the front and she does her little exercises and you just follow along. I guess that'll
I
be the
Yeah.
gym teacher.
I look forward to seeing your beach body, Hunter. I hope you just come out of quarantine just like shredded.
Um I'm hoping. I'm
Okay.
coming out full beard and I won't be able to wear my pants. They're so small.
Oh,
Have you
that's
guys seen anyone doing fitness optimally? Because I have been involved in 3 different workout classes.
hmm.
My local studio here, like a Pilates studio, Pure Bar, and then Tracy Anderson, who has like this multi-million-dollar international program, but none of them are doing it correctly, in my opinion. Like one of them is uploading videos to Facebook. And then if you took the class, you comment below so you get credit for it. And then the Facebook app obviously is not working. Like the audio doesn't work. And then for the other people, they're filming it in vertical on Zoom and they're not muting everybody. So you can like
Oh
hear
no.
people working out and it's live.
Oh
And then
no.
like there's just everyone's doing it the wrong way. I feel like, have you seen anyone doing it optimally?
Well, we certainly hope that our client on the So Friendly side is doing it optimally. We're helping them build out a fitness solution, so it's not live yet, but I think they're on a great path to success for sure. So it's good to hear to some degree that nobody's
Yeah.
figured it out yet.
Misery loves company.
Yeah. All right. Let's see what we got next on our Google slide here. So, this is a two-parter. We've got the New York City Department of Education is reversing its ban on Zoom after the company addresses its security and privacy concerns. The funny thing about this is that the way that they addressed their security and privacy concerns was just by buying Keybase, which is kind of insane to me. Like that's not how you like fix
Oh,
your
that's how
security
it
issue.
works.
You
Right.
just
You
like
can
buy a
just buy a
company and like
company.
boom, all of a sudden everything's solved.
Thanks.
So I'm impressed in two parts, right? Like impressed that people legitimately took that acquisition as like they fixed it, security is good. B impressed that like their way of doing that was like, well, you know what? Like let's just buy a company. Kristen, are you familiar with Keybase at all?
No, but I'm familiar with this strategy.
Yeah, so Keybase, what's interesting to me is like it doesn't to me even seem like a valid acquisition. So Keybase is like a messaging system. Like actually, I think I took it off of almost all my public profiles. But like if you went to my Reddit account or my GitHub account, maybe a year ago, there was actually a line in my bio that had this like really long Keybase key. And what it was is I put that there to verify my identity in Keybase. Keybase had this like messenger and file sending system. It was like a dedicated app, and you verified your identity by like plopping this like unique key into your online profile so that people knew it was definitely you that was speaking to them. And then they had all this encryption. I think that at one point they were like all blockchain based, and then they weren't blockchain based anymore. Then they were open source, and they weren't open source anymore. It's gone through a couple like changeovers, but of all the companies to buy, it's surprising to me that they just went the route of buying someone that was in like the messaging space rather than like, I don't know, like Cloudflare or like, somebody that's actually like invested in like database security. They just bought kind of like a consumer app that happened to have like a security front end to it. Um, I don't know, Kristen, like you said, you've seen this strategy before. What do you think about this as a strategy for a company to just kind of dissuade woes? Oh, well, we'll just buy a company. Is that a valid strategy?
No, and it's this strategy on both ends. It's also like it's just a PR strategy,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
It's
Hmm.
like this faux outrage by the Department of Education, kind of throwing Zoom under the bus for their security, when really security and privacy is an issue for everybody. It's not
Hmm.
like Zoom is the only company, but just because Zoom has been in the news lately because they have this technology for video calls, it's like now everyone go attack Zoom. And so Zoom's like, okay, let's deflect this negative attention by acquiring this company just to put a band-aid over it, even if it doesn't actually solve the problem, which a lot of people don't even understand how to solve that problem either. And then maybe they paid off. I mean, I don't know the details, but like maybe they made a contribution to somebody at the
Yeah.
Department of Education. Like
Wow,
there's so
we're
many
really
other
getting in it.
things.
That's
There's so
some
many things that
conspiracy
could have
level
happened.
stuff there.
No, I mean that's I'm just saying like that does happen in government though, where like all of a sudden things that were a big deal fall off the news and you have to wonder like why did that happen? But
Well, I saw a
I
lot
don't
of
know the details.
articles when this came out, which was like, why is everyone picking on Zoom? Google Hangouts has
Yeah.
the exact same privacy and security concerns. Like all of these, conferencing apps should be under the same magnifying glass, but they're not. And that's just because Zoom happened to like be in the news, and so everybody suddenly got more, higher scrutiny over it. I just can't believe that the solution was to just buy a company because Nilay and Dieter covered a lot of this actually with Tom Warren on the Vergecast, and one of the things that they talked about was that the security concerns were decisions. They weren't lack of technology. Like some of the security things that Zoom was doing, especially on your computer, like at one point last year, and this was like unprecedented at the time. And Jordan Hunter, I don't even know if you guys even knew this news, but at one point, they were essentially installing like a local web server on your computer to bypass all of like OS Mac,
Oh,
Mac
I did see
OS's
that.
like
Yeah.
restrictions, so that it could auto install Zoom like without your permission. And they even had like malware level scripting set up at the installer base where it would like click through all the like agree, to terms and conditions, continue. They were spoofing the system admin so that it would auto install without you having to have permission from your system admin. So like if you needed to install Zoom on like a corporate managed computer, it would actually spoof your system admin so that you didn't have to go get, permission from your IT team. And what Tom Warren was
That's
talking
awesome.
about was like this concept of like, sure, we know you did that because that is ultimately like a UX thing. Like it's a better experience to be able to install Zoom and not have to go check with your IT team. But like, dude, that's literally malware. Like you literally
Yeah.
installed actual malware on people's computers. And so when you have all these practices in place that are nefarious, I don't know, is a good word for it, and then your solution is not to like admit that you're changing your tone or your approach as a company, it's just to like buy a company. It seems like you're still shoving that stuff under the rug and not admitting, yeah, we totally messed up, like that was super uncool of us. the answer now is apparently like, yeah, we'll just let Keybase worry about it for us or something. It seems like a weird cop out.
Yeah, and it seems like whenever you know a lot about a given topic that happens to make it into the mainstream news, you're always going to find a lot of inconsistencies and misinformation there. And this is one of those examples. I mean, when I was doing some research on an article for Medium about remote work programs around the US, I went down the rabbit hole of the Amazon HQ2 competition. So you
Mm.
guys remember that?
Yeah.
And there were so many media sound bites out there by local governments and local economic development councils and different departments that wanted to own the sound bite of like, we recruited Amazon to come to our city or our state and it created this many jobs and they're investing this much. And actually, and the data that I uncovered found that Amazon might have a negative impact
Sure.
or would have a negative impact long term on that local economy and would actually take jobs away or not. They would have like a net loss of jobs because of where they were hiring and remote and robots and things like that. But it didn't matter because for the local governments, it was more politically valuable for them to get the soundbite of Amazon than it was important to have an actual positive impact in that
Yeah.
community. And so this kind of reminds me of that, where they're like, this faux outrage of this security thing because they want to appear that they're keeping people safe. And then they're like, oh, yeah, we did this thing. And they're like, okay, great, because we said something. Now they fixed the problem. And so we deserve a pat on the back, basically.
Yeah.
And it also could be that they don't understand what, maybe the Department of Education doesn't understand the technology needed to actually resolve this problem, so they wouldn't even know
They
if
wouldn't
it
even look
was
into if
solved.
this was a solve or not. It
Right.
looks optically great, and so they're good with it.
And very
Uh,
few people in the mainstream would notice the difference. Like, you guys know because you have a technology company, but most people wouldn't know.
Yep, I
Definitely.
would agree. Next slide. I feel like we've killed this one.
Let's see what we got. Okay, so we are
Oh
doing a
yeah,
new
yeah.
TV show on Twitch called Twitch Pitch. We're giving the first VC fund on Twitch, which I think it's cool that it's on Twitch and not any other streaming service. Basically, Shark Tank, where we give cash prizes of $5,000 and up to $100,000 in AWS credits plus access to PitchBook. Apply here. This is done by Lightship Capital. They've got this whole thing sponsored by PitchBook and AWS. I think this is interesting specifically because we saw, other pitches move remote. Like YC is now doing like remote demo days. They're doing remote. They're actually, I think the new cohort is going to be completely remote as well.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me that they're using Twitch instead of, I don't know, a million other opportunities for like live streaming, something that might be a little bit more, I don't know, less gaming. I don't know. Jordan, you
But it
use
rhymes.
Twitch. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It does rhyme. Pitch Twitch is a great brand. But Jordan, you use Twitch all the time. Is this something that makes sense, for people to get into? I don't even know how I would pitch on Twitch as an end user because you have to like have all the streaming stuff set up. Like I don't even know how I'm going to come into a pitch. Obviously, I know how the end user is going to do it. Like I'm sure Lightship could set up a
Yeah.
Twitch channel,
So
but
what's cool is like with some of the default streaming software, you can like queue stuff up ahead of time. So say like for these slides, for example, are on our live stream here, you could put that into your streaming software. So when you go to pitch, you don't necessarily have to have all the stuff and be pulling in stuff. You just basically swap through scenes. So it's actually easier than like one would expect. But I think this is super cool. And I think it's really cool, especially for us, because we raised totally remotely when we did our round, and people were like, "Oh my God, you guys are doing this!" And now people are literally building out entire systems things to like raise funds remotely. So I'm a huge fan of this, and good on for Twitch to like leaning out of the gaming stuff entirely and going into more like IRL stuff. That's really cool for them.
Mm.
Yeah, I really like it because it doesn't make sense anymore to have this burden on startups to like fly their team out to California to try to get money when they should be working on their product. It's just a distraction, in my opinion. And I get that, you want to have some FaceTime sometimes, or you need to expand your network. But all of my friends with startups, like, I feel like they're just always fundraising. And there's a lot of smart people out there. Many of them are on Twitch watching video games. I mean, maybe that's stereotypical, and being a female, it could be a bit unfortunate to see from that perspective that maybe they've decided, like, our target market is like male, this age,
The bro culture.
they're on Twitch. These are like the stereotypical guys creating tech startups or something. But I think it's good to give people access to funding no matter where they are in the world, because it shouldn't just be based on who who's in your virtual Rolodex. It should be based on a good idea, good management, and like merit, and giving people an opportunity. So I think it's a win-win. It's good for the investors because they're going to attract new pitches that they wouldn't have otherwise had in front of them, and it's good for people who wouldn't have access to funding.
Yeah, definitely. Hunter, what do you think our YC interview would have looked like had it been in Twitch?
I wish they would have done it in Twitch, because then they would have had the content, and then we'd be able to like see our pitch, and we'd be able to laugh about it now, how different the product is.
It is interesting that they'd be recorded, so you'd have some like history of that to share.
That is the one thing that I really like about remote work, is everything starts getting recorded and you can see it later. Could be a good thing or a bad thing. What I think about it, what's interesting is this: doesn't Amazon own Twitch?
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah.
So it's presented by AWS, which I'm assuming Twitch is being run on. So like when you get funding from these guys, I'm also assuming you'll get, it says up to $5,000. I'm assuming you'll get AWS credits. So for them, it's powered by AWS, but in reality, what are they really doing
for AWS?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's
awesome. The one thing everybody has always told us, we're on the 100,000 credit thing as well. So like we're using that.
Oh, I see that. Yeah.
But what everyone has always told me is that that's like the rope in, right? Is that they count on you growing very quickly, blowing through those credits, not realizing it on the, because they're timed credits. So it's not like we utilize $100,000 over the next 10 years. We utilize, maybe 10% of that in the first like year or two, grow to this insane amount. And then year 3, all of a sudden our AWS bill is like this massive shock and surprise to us. There's definitely a little bit of corporate America being sprinkled in here.
I love it. This is the way it should be, though, right? Like they should be sponsoring things like this. Twitch should have done this a long time ago. I just think that because of quarantine, things like this actually get to happen. Twitch has been around for a long time. They were around, I forget what they were called before that, but we were just, I was just talking with KP from Cuppa yesterday about this. It seems like even the incumbents like Twitch are now creating new products, new channel. In this case, it's like it's a pitching platform. So like when the pitch came out from Gimlet Media, like that was huge. And so like I can see this becoming the next Shark Tank. I would totally watch it.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
I didn't think about it being like actually a great marketing idea for Amazon, because it's not costing them that much. Like that might be the value or the perceived value to the people participating, but their cost of offering it is obviously much lower. And then once you're locked in, then there's switching costs. Like,
it's $0.
You're in there, you're never leaving.
I just think it's interesting to see if things like this become more niche. Like if you look at Twitch today, and it's definitely centered around gaming, and then we also look at like Salute that's doing fitness. Do you think that Twitch will start opening itself up more to better branding or like more opportunities? Or do you think other startups are going to come in here at like pitch.com, for instance? They're just doing like SlideShare software right now. Like it's essentially a competitor to Google Slides. But I could see them like swooping in and being like, hey, there's a huge opportunity right now for remote pitches. Nothing is like centered around that specific use case. Because I really feel like you'd have to hack Twitch a bit to get this to really work, because each individual startup would have to have their own individual stream, and then people would individually have to view that. Like or you'd have to have one account where everybody like shares the account. Like it's definitely not like set up for like multiple people all streaming to one central
Well,
location.
that's one of the big changes they've made. So I don't remember what it's called, but you can like do like group stream now. So say like
Mm.
I want to watch two gamers playing the same game, I can watch them in the same stream now.
Yeah,
So
but
I
what
don't.
about me from a broadcaster? That's, I guess, what I'm asking is like, I'm broadcasting to
Uh,
all of Twitch, right? Versus like broadcasting only to
Right.
like one person who is, because maybe as a startup, you don't want, at the time, maybe you're in stealth. You don't want literally every company in the world to be able to know what your pitch
no.
is and what your
Yeah.
numbers are.
Yeah.
A lot of these pitches are typically done behind closed doors and they might contain things like traction, revenue, burn rate. Twitch is a very public platform. So I'm wondering if there's an opportunity for startups moving forward to like maybe offer some kind of like private VC pitch thing. I don't know. Pitch.com guys, if you end up watching this, free idea. I'll take 10% royalties moving
it
forward.
Oh
it's
God. All right.
actually, I mean, the technology's there because it's basically like doing a webinar, and you can do that on YouTube. You can do that in Google Hangouts. You can do that on Zoom.
Right.
And so, yeah, like I can stream unlisted
Mm-hmm.
to YouTube and just send the link out, or I could stream it privately so that
Yeah.
only I can see it. And it's really, I mean, they obviously have the resources to do it. And Twitch has been trying to get more mainstream for a long time, because I remember one of my clients, actually two of my clients are like in the top 3 poker players on Twitch. I helped them relocate to Costa Rica.
Hmm.
And I actually went down there and lived with them in a poker house with a group of poker. I was like their relocation person, and I became friends with them. And we went down, and they have YouTube channels. And so, like, that's when I started creating content. And yeah, they were getting tons of views on Twitch. So at the same time, I think that summer, I started streaming travel. So I was one of the first Twitch partners in the travel IRL segment
Mm.
in 2017. So I can see that happening. And also, I don't know if anyone's talked about this much, but this was mind boggling to me that Airbnb started
Yeah.
offering the virtual experiences. And that hit me like a sack of bricks. I was like, this can compete with Teachable, Udemy, Skillshare, Twitch. Like, they're live streaming YouTube. Like, imagine Airbnb competing with all of those sites all of a sudden, when it started out as just a travel booking site.
Yeah. I mean, the future
Mhm.
battleground is bandwidth, right? Like people are going to
Yeah.
be competing for your bandwidth. Where are your eyeballs? What are you streaming? Whether you're, and I don't think people would have ever thought of Airbnb as competing for your bandwidth before.
Never, not before the pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Mhm.
it's totally changed, the landscape of like where you even see your startup in that, the like classic graph that you see on like a, pitch deck. It's like where we're at, competitors, and kind of where you lie on that T chart. That's all over the place now because everybody's kind of in the same segment.
Yeah, and do you think that everything is turning into like this mega monopolies basically?
Well,
Because it's
I
kind of
mean,
consolidating power in those types of companies with all of the resources, because
it's
before it used to be the bigger traditional companies had a harder time changing and shifting and adapting to competitors faster, but now that everybody's online, they're just like, it's
well, I mean,
easier.
I think there's a couple of things, right? A, it's probably a great time to be AWS or, Azure or Google Cloud or whatever, where
Yeah.
every single company relied on you for like email login. And now just all of a sudden 10x their bill because now
Yeah.
everything's streamed and, they've just like, their entire system is now reliant upon these servers. But yeah, to the flip side, I mean, I think what you're going to see, just like we just talked about with Zoom acquiring Keybase, I think you're going to see a lot of these smaller guys that were previously offer something that was like very niche. You're going to see a big guy go, well, we don't have the time to build that out. So let's just buy them and slap that on top of whatever our existing service is that is now no longer accessible because they offer, some live streaming. So probably a good time to also be in live streaming business. We'll see how long StreamYard lasts before somebody buys them.
Yeah, and yeah, and for people who just want to get acquired, if that's their exit strategy, it's a valid one, especially now. I used to work for, or I interned at like a renewable energy company in the UCF incubator back in the day, and pretty much all of the companies there were selling out to oil and gas companies, because once they got big enough, then those companies would just acquire their technology,
Mhm.
and it was like a good payday for them. They could move on to the next project. And then whether or not those technologies ever saw the light of day was another story. But yeah, it's really interesting time from that perspective.
Definitely.
Mm.
What do we have next here?
Yeah.
So I'm surprised SaaS companies haven't started charging by the hour, at least from a marketing perspective. 25 cents an hour is ridiculously cheap if the user of the SaaS tool is paid $50 an hour to do their job. But $8.99 a year sounds like it needs manager approval. And I think this actually goes right back to what we were just talking about. If you think about how much of our systems are going to be relying upon, an AWS server being running all the time, and we bill, for Yak, like we pay minute by minute for an AWS server to run our stuff. But then we turn around and, Hunter and I have gone back and forth over this like a million times, just over like the cost per user, trying to figure out like how much does one user cost us. And we have to slap some like generic number across it because some users cost a lot more than other users. And it is interesting to think that, if you started pricing things according to how it actually costs you to even run them, not only does it mean that there's a one-to-one relationship between your costs and what you take in on it, but that also technically does sound a lot cheaper. Hunter, would you be able to pull this off from a marketing perspective? Can we start charging by the minute?
No, what I think this is saying is like, because it says like 25 cents an hour is ridiculously cheap if the user of the SaaS tool is paid $50 an hour to do their job. So I guess like an example of this is like a designer is paid $50 an hour to do their job, and so that they're only charging like, let's say, 25 cents an hour to use like Figma. Am I interpreting that right?
Well, I think the goal is like when you look at a SaaS tool and you're trying to figure out if you're going to buy it and you have to do some cost analysis. Let's use Sketch as an example. Sketch is $99 a year. And we talk about this all the time internally. You got to spend money to make money. But if it's $99 a year and you're saying, oh man, that's a huge expense. And then, I'd rather just have my designer keep using Photoshop. We already have the license to that, right? But if your designer takes twice as long to get anything done in Photoshop, than
Mm.
they could in Sketch, you've just paid them whatever, $50 an hour, $80 an hour to do their job, twice as slow when you could have just paid one-time fee of $100 to get Sketch. So I think the question is, if a SaaS tool priced themselves the same way that they price a design tool or a employee, the person making that purchasing starts to go, oh well, my teammate, my employee is working, half as many hours on this task now, and it's only adding 25 cents an hour to what I already pay them.
Mm.
And it's just interesting that as products and product people, we always want to price things as like a monthly price or a yearly price. And I think it might be difficult for a manager to like think through the actual cost savings overall. But maybe if you just put it as like a minute by minute or an hour cost, all of a sudden it becomes, oh, well, that's nothing in the long run, right? When you think about it tied into how much I pay my employee.
I was just looking at this actually. A lot of transcription companies charge by the minute,
Right.
and I don't like it because it actually discourages me from using the product. I can see the minutes. I was actually just using a company called Recordify, and I think they have 100 minutes or something like that. 100 minutes of
And they
free
display it like
transcription.
what's available right on
Yeah.
the screen. Yeah.
So I only used a minute, but all of a sudden it started shrinking, and I'm like, I don't want to use this anymore. I'm going to use up all my transcription minutes just testing this thing out. So yeah, I would never charge by the minute. At least in my head, I don't know how I would pull that off. That's terrifying to me.
I mean, I think it would end up being, it always ends up being more expensive this way for the end user. So I can see why they would want to do it, but it would be tough. Just like when airlines started charging, extra for seats and baggage, it's kind of like if everyone did it and there was no choice, then the consumer would just have to go with it. But it's going to be hard if you're the first company to stick your neck out
Hmm.
there and be like, this is what we're doing now. It could come down to game theory
I think
and to see.
I think budgeting makes a huge difference. I mean, Jordan's messing with our numbers all the time, and I think having an unknown of how someone might use a product would like throw off our budgeting a lot. Whereas, like, if I tell Jordan X software is going to cost X per month, he can plug that into a spreadsheet, put it across an entire year, and see how that impacts our bottom line.
Yeah.
From a people perspective too, I would almost argue sometimes this is, I don't want to say predatory, but I don't know what other word to use. Like in the context of like AWS, like you talked about earlier, Justin, you look at it and you go, oh, 0.000 cents a minute. Wow, it's not that bad. And then like really, really adds up over time. And this may screw a startup at some point. So
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. What's our next slide here? So, Kristen, have you heard of Rome Research?
I just saw this on Twitter. There's actually another company, a co-living company called Rome that closed down, I believe. But so I was like wondering what this was.
Yeah. So, Hunter, do you want to kind of give her the overview, and then we can read this tweet out?
Yeah. So Rome Research is a brand new product. I think it's less than 2 months old or something. Maybe they just released it recently. Completely free product that's basically your own personal Wikipedia page. So as your experience, you would love it. Honestly, you would become a power user of it. People like Colin Borens use it every day. He was just telling me about it on Yak last night. But basically, what you do is you just type out your notes throughout the day, and then you'll put something in brackets, and that makes it a link. So, like in Wikipedia, if you're going through, let's say, Digital Nomad TV, you'll see the word Kristen Wilson in blue. You'll click Kristen Wilson, and then you'll have your own Wikipedia page, right? And then you'll go down, you'll see the word remote, and then when you click on remote, it goes to its own page. So basically, that's what Rome Research does. It's sort of like a cowboy bootstrap, like two or three founders. The guy smokes cigarettes every day. He's got long hair, like super super cool California dude building this thing. And yeah, they're getting a lot of hype right now. I think they have like, I don't even want to guess the percentage, but it's like the darling right now of Silicon Valley. But yeah,
But I mean, the
Justin, I don't know if you
goal
want to add anything else.
is sort of like that it works like Wikipedia, where you get into like, I don't know, people talk about this all the time on YouTube. You get into the black hole where you like click into one thing and you find a related item,
Mm,
you click into another thing, and you just keep diving further. And similar to Wikipedia, where like kind of all the pages are connected all at the same time. Um, that's sort of how it works. So like you have a concept that's referenced one place, but then you can click into it and it go to a completely different place where maybe that's defined, and then inside of that it's using another word that gets defined somewhere else, and so it's like, I don't know, a Notion document that's also kind of like a mind map at the same time. But this
right.
tweet says the people have spoken. The gates of Rome closed to new users tonight.
The
Um,
gates of Rome.
yeah, which is
That's
such a
amazing.
extra way of saying that we made it invite only. But
Oh,
yeah, I mean,
wait. So, Justin, before you go into it, I do have to explain to Kristen though. They do have like the Rome cult. Like it has its own like website, has its own Twitter handle, like a whole thing because people love it so much that they've called themselves the Rome cult. So that's why it's funny that they call it the gates of Rome. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Justin.
I like that.
well, I mean, I just think it's interesting. We started as invite only as well, right? And I think the goal there for us was to keep the iteration cycle really tight. We didn't want to listen to the vocal
Mm,
minority. We wanted to listen to, the power users. They opened it up all together. They did a reverse, right? Like they opened it up to everybody and then made it private. We made it private and then opened it up to everybody, which I feel like is probably the more normal way to do it. Um, but I think this is interesting because they they did what I think a lot of startups struggle to do. Like you said, they have like the cult, right? Like they did the
mm,
superhuman thing. They built a following um, around a product that arguably is very ugly, kind of clumsy. It's very powerful, but I mean, so is like a million other pieces of software that have been eclipsed by someone who came along and built a sexier version of it. But they built that following, and now that they've shut it down, it kind of makes you want it like even more, right? Like I'm not even a user, but now I'm like, how do I get an invite, right?
Yeah, I
Like,
know. I was like, man, I kind of wish that I knew about this before. It sounds great for sounds great for SEO,
that's
to be
why.
honest. But
Yep.
I mean, Wikipedia is so powerful, and they have their own cult as well. And like there's actually like a category that you can become like a Wikipedian,
mm,
and then people can hire you to build out their Wikipedia pages, but like you can't build your own page. So like this would be interesting because you could actually make your own page and you could associate yourself with the key terms or words that you want to be connected with. It would
Do
just, it's
you
like a
write?
shortcut.
Do you write? I remember I talked to you a little while ago, and you said that you write a lot. Do you write like journals every day to yourself about remote work, like, or is it just
I've
like
done,
blogs?
I've experimented with a lot of writing. I actually had a travel blog back in 2007, 2008.
Mm,
And I used to teach my high school English class because, like, I think kids had a hard time with grammar and commas back then, or probably now too. So my teacher was like, "Can you teach this?" Like, writing was my thing. I was always really bad at math, but I
Yeah,
was,
same.
like, failed the math side of the SAT, aced the other side.
Yep,
But
same.
yeah.
I and I have been, like, following Tim Ferriss's work since 2007, and so I kind of, like, have been going through a similar evolution as him. Like, I've noticed that
Mm,
sometimes he's doing morning pages. He's always doing experiments, right? And I've kind of done that as well. Like, I'm a very analog person, but also digital. So, like, I have journals, and then I also have so many different, like, writing apps and, like, workflowy. I don't use Notion, but then I have different blogs and things. So I do some form of writing every day. Like, actually, one of the fellow writers on Medium invited me to a 1,000 words per day 30-day challenge, and I was like, that's fine, because I might write 10,000 words in a
Oh wow.
day if
We're
it's
definitely not
not
on the
my
same page
blog.
there.
Or, yeah, I mean, I'm writing, like, podcast descriptions and YouTube scripts and, like, all kinds of stuff. So I'm just constantly writing. I should probably outsource more of it.
Have you seen Almanac?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so I think it's getalmanac.com. I'm pretty sure that's the URL.
Yeah.
But we did some stuff for them. It's funny. They started out as like Notion. It was like this internal thing, and then they noticed that like the thing that was taking off inside of their software was people using like templates that somebody else wrote, and so they kind of became this, like, they call it like GitHub, or like Notion's version of GitHub. Is this idea of like I wrote our hiring guide, basically the guidelines that I use at our company for who we're going to hire and how we're going to find them. And then they published that to Almanac. And now anybody else can come into Almanac and they can clone that, similar to like a GitHub repo, and put it into their own internal Almanac. And then they can edit it, put their twist on it, remove things that they didn't like about mine, or, bold things they liked about mine. And I think that's really interesting. I like this concept of like knowledge sharing externally. What if everybody's notions were just like open to the public, and you could, remix them and share them, and almost like you said, kind of like associate your company with like some sort of brands. Like I can see GitHub and GitLab and all these companies that have these like public versions of like what they're working on, that have these like roadmaps, doing
Yeah.
that, and then allowing me as a company to remix it and add my twist on it.
Yeah, it's like an open source internal policy and procedure slash administration
mm,
database.
Yeah, it's
I
kind of like
like it.
Wikipedia, but not for like, cheating on your history assignment.
Yeah.
Right. Like Wikipedia mixed with LegalZoom, mixed with SlideShare, maybe, in a
there you go.
way.
Yeah,
I'll have to
definitely.
check that out because, yeah,
Yeah,
that's why
Almanac I think is
reinvent
pretty
the
cool.
wheel?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can check out Almanac because it's available, but you can't check out Rome because they shut the gates, as it were.
It's so funny because I got removed from a WhatsApp group today that I didn't even know I was in. And my
Well,
first
that's
reaction
depressing.
was like,
What did I miss out on?
I'm like offended. Like, why did I get removed? I don't even know what this group is for. I probably had
Yeah.
it muted or something.
Yeah, well, feel that FOMO because you're no longer allowed to use Rome.
We'll have to get an invite somehow.
So I think, let's see. Yeah, I think the last two things are just like gaming related. So have you played Animal Crossing, Kristen?
Oh, I love this one.
God, I'm not a gaming person.
Oh, you don't have to
My
be into
Oh
gaming to play
no.
Animal Crossing, though.
my parents never let us have like Nintendo or anything, so I
Oh
just
man.
never became that person.
Well, if you can find a Nintendo Switch and you're longing to eat an apple on a beach somewhere, Animal Crossing is a great way to kind of live out
It's
that
a weird
fantasy right now.
description.
Well, no, what I love about Animal Crossing right now during the quarantine is it's like a way to like escape out of your house for a little bit and go do
Hmm.
something like you'd never really be able
Yeah.
to do. And I think that's what it like. It's funny they didn't modify the launch. This was just when it was launching. Maybe Nintendo planted the virus. It's like that's a
More
deep
conspiracy theories on
conspiracy
this
theory, but
podcast.
like they literally launched it like the best time in the world. You're stuck at home, you have nothing to do, we can't see the outside world, and so they launch Animal Crossing for the Switch, and it's just this magical experience of like building up your island, visiting other people, like it's living out this like fantasy of what you can't do in quarantine. And it's built an entire economy. We talk about
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
turnip economy and all these people sharing their friend codes on Twitter whenever they have high turnip prices so that you can go sell your turnips on their island. There was like a whole article written about how Elijah Wood was like visiting people. AOC yesterday was tweeting out her friend code so that people could visit her island. And like it's created this entire ecosystem of like trading goods digitally through Animal
Yeah.
Crossing. And their design system for the custom like shirts and stuff is really, really well done. And I saw early on, actually, I think the Chinese government, I think, banned copies of Animal Crossing because people were building QR codes on their island on the ground that you could scan with a WeChat QR code scanner to buy in-game items. And like basically they had a whole like black market operation
Yeah.
built through like WeChat QR codes and Animal Crossing, so much so that the government started banning copies of Animal Crossing coming into the country, which is insane. But
Insane.
now
Wow.
there's like actual people charging as a consultant to do like interior design, which is insane to me. And I think it's the coolest thing ever that
I
someone found a side hustle moving someone's couch around on Animal Crossing.
It's like
I've
The
also
Sims, huh?
Yeah, it's very
yeah.
similar to The
It's very
Sims.
like it.
I've also seen
You
that
should
like
start.
people have almost like fallen like got like full staff. Like they'll have like their friends come to their island, hire their friends to like harvest stuff or build stuff, get paid real money, and then go to somebody else's island
There
and
was
like
there was a
duplicate.
thing for like farming rocks, I think, where someone
Yeah.
had bouncers set up. They had friends that they invited to their island that were set up as like bouncers to prevent people from like going in all at the same time. So they were like gating access to like a certain area to farm on someone's island.
That is
Absolutely
hilarious.
crazy.
I don't want to.
Kristen,
I'll just get addicted to this.
you should start your own. What was it, like a moving consultancy? You should do that for Animal Crossing. See how much money you can make.
Animal Crossing relocation.
I'll help
Absolutely.
you
Relocation. That's right.
I hope you relocate to Elijah Wood's island for the nominal
I was
There you
thinking
go.
that. That's
Absolutely.
awesome.
So
AOC actually was streaming on Twitch for a while, and I remember that getting some buzz back when
she's hip
she
with the
was
kids,
first in
man.
office. So she's on top of it. Well, she's just a Gen Zer, I guess.
Yeah, she is. But I think I think it's amazing that a game like Animal Crossing. I mean, I played the original GameCube version. I remember getting it for Christmas. Like, it was a magical experience because Kristen, one of the cool things with the game is that it's clocked to real time and real world events. So when Easter was coming, they had an Easter event. When Earth Day was here, they had an Earth Day event. Like, I had a thing. I actually woke up like in a start last night, ran downstairs because May 7th was the last day that I could use my May Day ticket to go to the special island Animal Crossing that was going to expire. And it's the first game that it's funny because it puts a pressure on you to do things that are time related, but at the same time I actually like that you can't just beat the whole game in one day. It's kind of meant to be played across like a year or a lifetime, really. But what's very interesting about it is that they just launched it in this time in which like it's exciting to have something new to look forward to each day and to log into Animal Crossing, see what the new events are, talk to new people, make these friends online. But then on the flip side, when we talk about entrepreneurship and the opportunities that are presented, I love that somebody saw this and was like, I'm going to build a side hustle, out of this. This is amazing. It just proves that even inside of a pandemic, people are still have that kind of ingenuity to do things
Get
like
creative.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always say that like there's as many ways to make money as there are people in the world because I mean people design video game avatars and there's just unlimited ways to earn a living with the internet. So I love it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, this is our last slide, so this is just Fortnite. Welcome to the party. Jordan, you want to kick
Oh
this one
man.
off?
Yeah, I mean I went to the Travis Scott concert in Fortnite, and for one, that was just an absolute exciting experience. Good for them for pulling it off. But this number, 3.2 billion hours spent in game in just 1 month. That is insane.
Oh, I didn't
Absolutely
realize it
insane
was
to me.
1 month. That is nuts. So in April,
Wow.
players spent 3.2 billion hours in game and 350 million registered players. Call of Duty said yesterday that 60 million players were on Warzone, and I looked at that number and I was like, oh my god, like
Yeah,
that's pretty impressive, right? 60 million people all using your game, and then you go look at the Fortnite numbers, and it's like it's 60 million. That's basically nothing compared to 350
yeah.
million users in Fortnite.
Far less
That's
than just like what
mind
half of
boggling.
what they're doing.
Yeah,
I mean, this just goes to show that we are like literally one human race. I mean, everybody is hanging out together on the internet, and this pandemic has shown that people cannot survive without community.
yeah,
And so, wherever they find that community, whether it's in a video game or in live streaming software or on social media or whatever, like that is the only thing keeping people sane right now is just connecting with other people on digital islands and like Twitter and wherever else. I mean,
definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think what's crazy is I don't know where I saw it, like an ad for this, but they advertised it as a concert. It wasn't advertised as like a
Mhm.
DLC or a game, or it was come see Steve Aoki and Deadmau5 perform live. Like
Yep.
but it's not
yeah.
live, but it is live. It's it's a whole new definition of what entertainment can be. But they didn't skip a beat explaining that like you're gonna go to a live concert, like this is what the new normal is. Log into Fortnite, and I love like a lot of the images they used were like players like sitting on a mountain watching like a DJ
Hmm.
stream, like a mile away. This like they're jumping around and like setting things on fire, and like it's obviously stuff that you could never do in real life, but it's completely changed how we perceive a live event. Like, I mean, I think this goes all the way back to what we talked about at the beginning with pitches being done over Twitch now. The concept of a pitch and going into a boardroom and like sitting at a table with a pointer and going through a slideshow. I bet you could do. I mean, we talk about this with Peter all the time at BetaWorks. You could do pitches in
Hmm.
Fortnite, and imagine all the like creative tools and the way that you could like totally change the way that you present your company if you are wearing a banana suit and jumping up and down while you present your product.
Yeah, this is why I was really heartened to see founders tweeting about creating a YouTube channel because this is something that I've talked with some people with about before. I even like DM'd Andreas Klinger and I was like, why doesn't AngelList have more subscribers on YouTube? And like, why aren't more people talking about what they know? Because there's so many smart people. Like everybody on the world has a story, has a personality, and like, why not show up and do a pitch in Fortnite? Like, it's just all about being in front of other people. And even something like this party or this concert that's in Fortnite, when they canceled Coachella, some of the bands and some of the artists had their own live streams in place of that. And then I ended up getting invited to like Zoom parties to
Mm,
watch YouTube live streams of Coachella artists. And so for everything that these companies put out, then there's also creative people creating like side groups and side projects off of that and side streams and so it's just really interesting to see like all the different directions that this is going, and so you never know who's going to be watching and then what that spark is going to create in someone else. So
definitely. Well, yeah,
very
it's
cool.
certainly cool to see like the evolution, and I think it's very interesting that you say like, we're a human race and we found a
Yeah.
way to all communicate because it wasn't happening the way that we're used to, and so the world just moved on. As
And
Jurassic
figured it
Park might
out.
say,
Yeah.
life found a way, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's certainly interesting to see that. Well, that is our last slide, and we've run a little long today because we had the world's gigantic bucket of technical problems today. But Kristen, we appreciate you coming on. We're going to cut this up, put in all
Yes.
kinds of different snippets. We'll put it on YouTube so anybody who's not watching it live can watch the recap. But thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah,
Where,
thank
where
you.
can people find you online, Kristen?
You can find me at youtube.com/traveling with Kristen, and also on Instagram and travelingwithkristen.com. I also have a weekly podcast called Badass Digital Nomads and a Facebook group with the same name. And I've been on Twitter for a long time, but I've been quite silent on it for like 10 years, but I've been more active lately in the past year. So also, you can tweet me at Where's Kristen with an I.
Awesome. Well,
Cool.
we appreciate you coming on. Everybody wave goodbye. We're
Yes,
going to
thank
log off.
you.
We'll see you guys later. Adios.
Bye. Have a great
Bye.
weekend.
You too.
Bye.